Hi. The very first thing I did to prepare for this talk was to ask family members to describe me as a kid. My mom, let's start with mom, described me as having this big, infectious smile, which I think I still have. It's big and toothy, gaps and all. She also described me as constantly singing and dancing. Other family members said I was loud, playful, joyful, hardworking, overachieving. And while I'd like to think a lot of those traits were and still are true, I've also come to the realization that I figured out pretty early on that those were the traits that were deemed most acceptable. Those were the things that were most celebrated. So that's what I allowed people to see. Growing up in the South, in a Black family, and being a softer gay boy was extremely confusing. I was constantly surrounded by family and friends, a lot of love, but I always felt alone, which is an experience that was carried well into my adulthood. What I mean by that is I figured out that if I could be otherwise perfect, then maybe I was deserving of that love. Maybe I wasn't doomed to hell. Maybe I wasn't an abomination like everything I'd ever learned taught me. And it worked for a while. I also loved going to church. Church is where I discovered my love of music. When I was singing, I felt like I was right where God meant me to be. I felt like that for as long as I can remember. But growing up in a Southern Baptist Black church, which is the pillar of Black American culture, the very worst thing you can be is a man who is interested in other men. It's the age-old struggle. I love God, I love my family, I love my church, but there is no way they can love me because of this thing inside of me that is becoming more and more impossible to ignore as I age. And it's not just about being gay, it's everything that comes along with it. All the stereotypes, how you walk, how you talk, how you dress, how you deal with your emotions, all of it is under constant scrutiny, and everybody's trying to change it all. But let's be honest, I know that everyone in my life was just trying to best prepare me to live in this world. They were doing everything in their power to set me up for success by teaching me our society's shared norms, values, beliefs, and behaviors. This is the way every child learns. This is socialization. There's a huge argument over nature versus nurture, but I think we can all agree that nurture has a high impact on a person's personality, how they feel about themselves, and how they present themselves to the world. And while socialization is important, vital even, it can also result in counterproductive behaviors. In my case, I became particularly skilled at presenting the most palatable version of myself. It is my opinion that as we grow older, as we learn right from wrong, as we learn when to speak up and when to stay silent, as we're socialized, something gets lost. There's an individuality that, if not snuffed out completely, it most certainly gets muzzled. There's this old saying that the most attractive thing a person can be is confident. But so many of our children have that confidence snuffed out of them in an effort to best prepare them for society. So, how do we rekindle that sense of individuality? Not only learn to love that part of ourselves, but share it willingly and openly with the world. From the moment I learned what Broadway musicals were, I so desperately wanted to be in them. But after 7 years of amazing performing opportunities that took me all over the world, that big, shiny Broadway goal just kept eluding me. Every time I got far in the audition process, close to that goal, the feedback was always similar. Something along the effects of, "You're obviously very talented, but you just don't seem ready." So it wasn't until what I call my quarter-life crisis, which is a very real thing. Caroline Beaton for Psychology Today says, while later life crises may be distinguished by the realization that we have failed to achieve our goals, quarter life crises are rooted in the epiphany that we don't have any goals, or that our goals are wildly unrealistic. But it was at this time that I decided to stop trying so hard for Broadway and to invest my time and energy in another passion of mine, teaching. I started applying to grad schools, and it was in an interview with the woman heading the program that I was applying for at the time where my life changed. She said to me, "Deonté, you are the perfect candidate for our program, but I can't shake the feeling that you're running from your performing career." And that was earth-shattering. I don't know what it was about those words coming from her or similar sentiments coming from people in audition rooms, but for some reason it hit home that time. And this really kind of set me on a journey to figure out what exactly it was I was running from and why. So I stopped auditioning for grad schools and I kept performing. And it was a couple of years later, a few contracts later, that kind of shook everything I thought I knew about myself, where the realization started to dawn on me what it was. I don't remember the exact moment. I assume that it happened over time, but I realized that I was only still showing people the most palatable version of myself. This explained not only why my career goals kept eluding me, but also why my personal relationships all felt so hollow. My friendships, relationships with family, relationships with people at work, it was all so curated. So I began the process of self-discovery, trying to figure out who I really am and how I can share that with the world around me. And it was in the middle of that process that I walked into an audition for Aladdin on Broadway to stand by for the genie, and I got it. But the best part of all of this is the way my relationships have changed. My connections are richer, deeper, much more satisfying. And in the years since, I've also learned that this kind of introspective work doesn't have a destination. It's a journey that you have to commit to staying on. As a society, our norms have changed quite drastically from some 25 years or so ago when I was just a wee tot. Gay marriage is legal. The Me Too movement is actually protecting people from sexual harassment, and drag queens are mainstream. But as our society so reluctantly becomes more tolerant, more accepting, I want to challenge you to examine the ways in which you may have limited yourself, from how you express yourself outwardly, how you dress, to when you choose to speak up and when you choose to stay silent. How much of that is serving you? What do you need to unlearn to discover who you truly are? And as we set our visions for the remainder of 2020 and beyond, maybe it's time to take a serious look at how we socialize our children. Ask ourselves, at what point does socialization become damaging? When it comes to their individuality and self-expression, maybe we change course, challenge the norm, buck the system, give our kids the freedom to discover who they really are and support them through it. In these challenging, quarantined times, we are spending much more time together than ever before. It's the perfect opportunity to put into practice the knowledge that what makes us different is what brings us together.